everyone, it's Kylie from PaperDaisyJournals. This video is a craft with me tutorial on how to make a quilted heart journal closure, and I have a list of materials that you will need here. So scissors, heart template, and I will link a video where I show you how to make one if you don't already have one. Thread, I prefer to use quilting or embroidery thread because it is a feature, so it needs to be a little bit thicker than just sewing machine thread. A sewing needle, a piece of quilt, vintage or upcycled, 2 small eyelets, a crocodile, and a length of ribbon or twine, and optional, a few buttons. Okay, so that is our list of materials. And this is the heart template that I'm going to be using. These are the buttons that I will be sewing on. And I have my piece of quilt, my little eyelets. So they're just small ones. You can use whatever size you want. And that is the crocodile. We are memory keepers that I will be using because you can actually punch the hole and also put the eyelet in with the one tool. So that's something that I find I use a lot. I'm going to be using twine. At the end of the video, I will actually show you a couple of other examples that I have made. So that's just something to keep in mind. Some inspiring ideas, hopefully. So what I do with the piece of quilt, I cut it almost to the size of the template, so you're not having to hold too much of the quilt when you're cutting the heart out. You can, of course, just cut a heart shape out if you want, if you prefer more of a rustic look, but I tend to start cutting what looks like a heart shape, and then it ends up being super tiny because I'm trying to sort of even up the sides, a bit like cutting your fringe. Okay, so I sort of come back in and then round the top off, and I try really hard, apart from that point there, to not move my hands while I'm cutting around the template. So that, and it's not going to be perfect because obviously a quilt can be quite thick, so don't expect it to come out looking perfect. Now this is linen thread that you can use for quilting. It's a little bit thicker, and I've just threaded a sewing needle with that, and now I start at the bottom, and this is just a simple running stitch, so just over, under, or up and down, and I just go around the edge. You can, of course, do a different stitch if you want to, but this is just to hold the two bits of fabric on the quilt together, and it's also a little feature too. It makes it sort of more handmade, I guess. You can, of course, use a sewing machine if you want to. Far easier, much quicker, but for me, a lot more messy. I'm not very good at going around corners with a sewing machine, so that's why I tend to do hand stitching on this particular thing or craft project. So just sort of going around. It's a good idea not to pull your threads too tight, otherwise it pulls the heart, unless you want sort of more of a 3D look, I guess, but it does tend to make the heart pucker a little bit. So this is just going around really. I'm going it quickly because this is the boring bit, I guess, and trying really hard not to get mixed up like that. And as I said, at the end of the video, I will show you a couple of variations on this. So this is just the simple version to start with, and I'm hoping I have enough thread. because I didn't exactly measure it. Now this is probably a smaller size heart. Why would I get stuck? I'm trying, probably because I'm rushing. I'm really stuck. Okay, just calm down. Okay, we're not going in that part. There's obviously something stopping us. Oh dear, come on. We just need to get through. I'm just going to cut that little bit off there anyway because it seems a little mixed up. I'm not sure why we're having trouble. We have malfunctioned. All right, let's have one more go. No, it's not working for me. That's just mean. Is it because I moved the... All right, one more attempt. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to... Oh, I stabbed myself. Oh, there's so much drama in this video, and it was just meant to be a simple little heart closure. I'm not going to start again, even though that was probably quite a lengthy blooper. We're going to push on because this is what happens in real life when you're crafting, and I'm all for real life experiences. So I just grab some of the fabric at the end and tie this off. This back bit will actually be on a journal, so you're not, if you're concerned about the messy look, there are ways that you can hide that at the on the back, but that is our heart. We got there in the end. Okay, so that's our stitching. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our holes. So I'm just using the small hole because we've got small eyelets, and I don't go directly across the widest part. I sort of go down probably 1 centimetre, or I think that's probably 1/2 inch or maybe 1/4 inch. Try really hard to have this in line. Wonky holes are okay, but if you're a bit like me, you want them to be opposite each other. Now with the crocodile, I've got the smaller movable part at the top, and then I've got the it's a bronze color bubble at the bottom that comes to a point. And the reason for that is when we use the crocodile and squeeze the eyelet, you actually want it to split. Normally I prefer it to be a nice circle because it's rough in a journal, but we do want it to split because that is what's going to hold the eyelet on to the quilted heart. So that's just a handy hint there. So we've done, and it's locked itself. Does anyone else get that with their crocodile? Every time I use it, it locks itself. Okay, so back, focus. Now, so we've done our eyelets. This is where we're going to thread the twine to make the closure. But before we do that, I was going to attempt to sew a few buttons on. But given the fact that I got so stuck, I'm just going to show you what it could look like with buttons on the front, just grouped in a really sort of cute way, okay? And if we have time, I will sew the buttons on, but this is how the closure works. So you can do it either way. With this particular one, I'm going to thread whatever ribbon or twine or silk or sari silk you were using to close the journal, threading it behind, and then it goes on to the journal. Or you can actually do it a different way and thread it from behind across the top, and it wraps around the journal. So that is a very simple version of the Quilted Heart journal closure. I'm going to show you now what it looks like on a journal. So I've made some other ones. This one I've made with some vintage gold embroidery thread. I have sewn a bow on the front with a cross stitch, and then I've just put a little vintage blossom in the cross stitch at the front. So you can get as fancy and creative as you like. With this closure, I have gone underneath, and this is a journal I'm working on, but this is how it works as the closure. So I think it's kind of cute to cover up some of that lady so you can see, you know, that she is behind the heart. And then you simply tie a bow, and that is the closure. So I thought that was just a really cute way of adding some texture and dimension to the front of a journal. You can obviously take it off if you want to. But yeah, so that's what it looks like on a journal. This is another example of going across the top and weaving some lace through maybe a charm or a feature on the top. And I'm not sure where I got this key charm from, but in order for it not to move, I have knotted on both sides at the back so that that will stay in place when you wrap it around a journal, so the key's not moving from side to side. So that's another handy hint if you're using it, the closure as another feature across the front. And I have just used that quilting linen thread around the edge of that closure and some lace. So that's another idea. And probably my favorite one, this is a piece of quilt with a more detailed sewn pattern that I probably didn't need to sew around the edge because it's not likely to come apart, but I still love the feature. And we've got the eyelets there. This is a slightly bigger one. And what I've done with this applique, I have tacked it in 3 places so that it is still, it's held on, but it's not completely sewn down. And I have woven some of this silk chiffon through some of the gaps in that applique. Honestly, if I see little gaps like this, I just have an urge to weave. So that's what I've done, and that is going to go on to a pink journal that I'm sort of have a creative pile going for. But that's probably one of my favorites. So that would actually go, let me see if I can, I've got another journal I've started here of another lady dancing, and that's what it would look like on the journal. So your imagination is your only limitation, and if you're imaginative, there is a good possibility that you are going to get addicted to making these little quilted heart journal closures. So I'll just show you all of them together, and we will just pretend that we have sewn those buttons on, because I think short and simple is much nicer, but the little buttons are very cute. Obviously, if you're going to put buttons on, I would have the closure going behind the quilted heart. So you can also, another thing you can do is with my tutorial on making the heart template, you can actually change. Of course, that's not going to work. It's one of those days. I am persisting though. I'm going to get there, probably completely out of frame. You can actually cut a second quilted heart and sew that onto the heart at the top. So you've got sort of 2 layers, and you could also put eyelets in the smaller heart and sort of weave it and have a little secret tuck spot behind the heart on the front, a bit like this, but have two eyelets here and a little tuck spot behind the heart, which would be quite fun on the cover of a journal. So that is my quilted heart journal closure tutorial, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.